from that full rounded look from the front, we're going to need to work on the front delt. The seated press is obviously the go-to move for hitting that front delt. There's also standing military presses and the Viking press. So let's take a look at the seated one and make sure we're hitting that right. So first of all, the bench. I don't have it bolt upright. I have it just very slightly off fully upright. So 1 or 2 clicks back. I want to elevate my chest ever so slightly. And because I've got traps and rear delts and muscle on the back, by having the seat ever so slightly just off upright, it allows me to sit very comfortably with a tight core, chest nice and high, and most importantly, a nice safe range of movement and controllable range of movement for the shoulders. You need to use a bit of a wide camera angle here to be able to show you this, but there's a couple of little handy hints that you can make sure that you're hitting this safely and also keeping that focus on the front delt when we're lifting. So setting ourselves into position, what we want to do is have our feet planted. We don't want happy feet. Make sure your feet are even and planted, and that's where they stay. Don't have them dancing around. If your feet are dancing around, legs are dancing around, it means you're not using your base as a foundation to drive from. And that means that there's going to be some instability in your lifts, and that can lead to injuries. So make sure that you are planted. Core tight, and my chest slightly up. From here, I'm going to look to press up, but not touch or bounce or bang the weights together. The weights need to be above my head. Now for me, to add a little bit more focus onto that front delt, what I like to do is ever so slightly just tilt those dumbbells in at the top. By tilting them at the top, what we do is stop the main problem that people do in the lift, which is a big error point, is as they press, the weights tend to tip outward, and then that leads to them wanting to spread wide, and that's putting unnecessary stress down onto the elbows and through onto the arms. If we tilt that inner head in just a little bit, what it does is allows us to control the heavier loads a little easier, but also keeps that focus on the front delt. You'll feel it immediately once you do it, and it's such a small movement. From there, what I want to make sure I'm doing is coming down evenly, controlling that negative, coming to a stop point, and then driving from that stationary stop point and taking out that bounce. From here, we're getting a nice, strict, focused front delt recruitment, and we're not giving it any rest, allowing us to use a lighter load with a greater focus. So at the base of those lighter lifts, you can see that you're going to be able to stop here very controlled and keep that tension on the front delt, and it's not going to overload the joint, it's not going to cause you any joint pain. When we shift up to the heavier loads, Jesus, stop running away. Weight's got a goddamn mind of its own. On the heavier movements, you're gonna have to think of a few more things. Posture is critical here though. So we're gonna wanna keep our chest nice and high, our core tight, feet planted. Don't want any rocking or rolling in that upper body. What we're gonna do, once we've got the heavy weight up, as we're coming down that negative, we're gonna think about a pull-up. When you do a pull-up, you think about squeezing your scapula together. We're basically gonna be doing that. So from the top of the rep, as we're coming down on that negative with the heavy weight, we're gonna squeeze our shoulder blades together as if we're trying to hold a pencil between our traps on our back, squeeze them together, and that's gonna give us support around that shoulder joint to stop that weight moving forward and backwards, but also it's gonna give it a natural rest point at the bottom from which you can stop and then drive back through. What we don't want is to bounce heavy weight through, because that's going to use the elastic potential of your tendons and ligaments. That's going to cause snaps, silly shit, and that's going to stop you being able to progress with shoulders because you're not going to be able to train them. So with the weights going up, we drive up from a static position, so my feet are planted, my core's tight, chest high, head nice and neutral. I drive up, control. Now, I fight that eccentric, and now I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together, and I'm pushing my chest up towards the weight. I stop it, and then drive. Boom. Rinse and repeat. Boom. Not this. Snap. Ooh, God, that felt horrible just doing it. Yeah, definitely don't do that. So just from showing you that simple movement, you can see how that front delt has already been really activated. And that's, again, we want to be switching up between the volume and the heavy. With the volume, you've got that dead stop, and you're able to control it and keep that focus continually on that front delt. But with the heavier loads, we're going to work to bring in that scapula, chest nice and high, and driving up to make sure we come to a dead stop, which will feel a little bit more relaxed. You're not going to keep that tension on it throughout, but you're going to get tension on that concentric and then tension on the eccentric with that slight pause at the bottom. If you're working with somebody else, that will be the point where your spotter comes in to help you on those forced reps. But if you don't have a spotter, your technique failure is your failure point, not the inability to lift a weight, because we can all twist that shit up. That's all going to lead to injuries and no gains. The longer we can train consistently, the better. Lift it, don't shift it. Now I've got a little bit of an added bonus one here, because I have suffered from many shoulder injuries in the past, just from wear and tear, but also from having impingements that have caused overload in the wrong areas, which is why I'm hoping this video will help some of you avoid that. But one exercise that I utilized during my rehab time really helped me out. It really helped. This one movement really helped my shoulders move through a natural range of motion and also connect my mind to that range of motion. and that one was high volume Arnold presses, particularly standing. By doing these, I really had to force my shoulders to control weight through a full range of motion that it really didn't want to be in, especially after suffering damage to that rear rotator cuff. By really focusing on this point when I came down to a normal shoulder press level and rolling in from here, so really rotating that shoulder joint through and around, almost like you would do on a pec deck, and roll it around onto that front head controllably. And the whole time, the rear delt and scap was having to stabilize that motion. Using a lighter load and volume, I was able to force the shoulder to have to work through those more natural ranges of motion, force that scapula to come in and stay aligned with the good, healthy side, because obviously you've got something to literally mimic in a mirror. So if you're off, you can see it. And what I found was the trap was what was causing that hitching. If you especially focus on disconnecting the trap in the neck, as you come around and roll through, you'll feel that load stay on the shoulder, but it's gonna want to come onto that trap, and that's what you have to fight. Get this one right, and I promise you it will become one of your favorite movements. I still keep it in to this day. So we've covered the middle delt, the front delt. There's still this rear delt here that helps really cap off the physique